So we've come to Lesson 17, a diagram for 1 Samuel chapters 1 through 10. And in the very center of the page there is a heart, the same heart that we had on the page for Ruth. And of course, Ruth has a identity upon this page because of the four figures, four other hearts of women who are sign of model of the second person of the Trinity, just as Ruth is. And what Jesus said has an appropriateness to these women. You will know them by their fruits. When people don't understand about Mary, we can take them to those very words of her Son. You will know them by their fruits. Isn't that the way that we identify who and Mary is and how important she is in the plan of God? Well, these other women have a prefigurement of Mary that's just quite amazing. So let's go to the Old Covenant first, because the New Covenant on the right-hand side will fulfill the Old Testament in the remarkable way that the New Covenant always does. And there we see two hearts. One is Ruth, whom we met in our last lesson, and the other is her contemporary, Hannah. I have never read about their being actually sisters during the same, not actual sisters, but sisters of Israel during the same time period. Of course, there again, Ruth is not an Israelite, but they lived during the same time period, and the way we know that is to figure back from their descendants. Let's look at Ruth. She, we know, as the great-grandmother of David. So, between Ruth and David is her son Obed, his son Jesse, and then David. Then we look over at Hannah, and her son, born out of barrenness again, which we'll look at in a minute, is Samuel. But Samuel is an old man, a grandfather, when he anoints David, the youth, a very young boy, king of Israel. So this does, of course, make Hannah and Ruth contemporaries, and they live in a very similar area, not too far apart. So that is the Old Covenant, and we will look at it more closely because we're looking at 1 Samuel, and Samuel's the son of Hannah. But then we look over into the New Covenant, and we find this remarkable pattern repeated, but now on a higher plane. We have Elizabeth, barren, an elderly cousin of Mary, and the Lord meets her in the natural way in an answer to prayer. Then she bears the son John. It's a priestly family. John is a prophet. And John will anoint in the Jordan River Jesus as prophet, priest, and king, the son of David. This Jesus is Mary's offspring by the Holy Spirit. Mary will sing a rejoicing prayer that is taken from the rejoicing prayer of Hannah when she conceives Samuel. Mary and Elizabeth, contemporaries, cousins, are the fulfillment of Hannah and Ruth in many other ways as well. Hannah is barren, and she must beg God. The old priest thinks she's drunk, for a child. She is very sad to be barren, as all Israelite women are and were. God hears her prayer, and she then devotes that child to the worship and order of God by taking him back to the old priest and dedicating him for his life as a prophet, priest, and judge of Israel. Ruth, we saw, chose God before marriage. She left all that might have made her a fruitful woman in her own country in order to follow her mother-in-law and become an outcast in the land of Israel where no one would probably marry her. God overruled that. She became the mother of Obed. Obed, who would be the grandfather of David. So these two contemporary women are the sign and model of the second person of the Trinity already in the Old Covenant. You will know them by their fruits. Then Mary, with her rejoicing prayer taken from Hannah, has also chosen God before marriage. For she says to the angel, "How can this be? I am not knowing man." And the angel then says, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you and you will conceive a child, Jesus, prophet, priest, and king, anointed by John, a prophet." Actually, the words spoken about Samuel, that he would continue to grow both in stature and favor with the Lord and men, is said of Jesus, who increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. So isn't that a remarkable paralleling of the Old and the New Covenant? You will know them by their fruits. And these, the fruits of these women, are true shepherds. Shepherd being the way Israel regarded anyone who was leading the people. Samuel is the central person then in our reading. He is a national prophet, but he is also a seer or a clairvoyant, which seems very strange to us, but it's not in the sense of some modern knowledge of a new age, of anything like that, because he is totally God's spokesman. What he sees and what he foresees is only because of the Spirit of God. When the people beg Samuel to make them a king, he is very reluctant. But in this role he has a prophet and priest, although he's not really of a priestly family. He does come from the family of Levi, but not in the line of priests. But he does anoint both Saul and David as kings, the first kings of Israel. He, in this role as a kind of seer or a clairvoyant, recognizes Saul, anoints him secretly, and Saul is very put off by this at first, and who wouldn't have been? He was just a farm lad. How would he ever know what to be as a king? He didn't, and he made some serious mistakes. Samuel loved him and wanted him to succeed. But when the ark is stolen in the war, taken from Shiloh by the Philistines, Samuel is the leader of Israel before he anoints Saul. Now that ark has a hard time, the Philistines actually have the hard time living with that ark, because God when he's placed next to any idol, the idol can't stand up. And this happened to the Philistines. And then they broke out with tumors until that they were totally sick and tired of having this godly ark in their midst, and ties it to 2 milk cows who leave their calves behind and march that ark on a wagon right back to Israel. But the Philistines have the upper hand throughout the time of Samuel. He is unable to lead the people to any great victories over them. But he is filled with God's Spirit. And from the time he's a little boy, when he first experiences his own theophany with God. When he grows old, he rides a circuit. And though he summons armies to fight the Philistines, as we've said, they have the upper hand most of the time of Samuel's leadership of Israel.